evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Good evening, everyone. This evening we have the privilege of spending time with the amazing Dennis La Rue. A little bit more about Dennis. Dennis is an international transformational change agent, and he does this personally, professionally, and globally. He founded LDR, Leaders Develop Relationships. Dennis believes that all problems, no matter how complex they seem, can be broken down to fundamental solutions. As an international coach, he was part of the transformation of Paraguay, South America. As a leadership expert, he trains leaders from cradle to grave. He is an adjunct faculty coach at the University of Denver, teaching and coaching frontline leaders in Fortune 500 companies. Dennis has a gift of connecting with people, building trust, challenging beliefs while encouraging others to reach their next level, leading to transformational results. Dennis blends the wisdom gained from a lifetime of servant leadership as a husband, father, grandfather, pastor, and military professional to add value to your organization in leadership development and personal growth. He retired from the United States Air Force in 2015 after a distinguished 23-year career. He served in various senior leadership roles as a management consultant, human resources program manager, public speaker, and trainer. Dennis is an internationally certified executive coach and trainer with the Maxwell Leadership Team. He develops training material used by 43K coaches in 165 nations across the world. He is married to his best friend, Jamie La Rue, has 3 amazing grown children and 5 precious grandchildren. Enjoy this session with us. Welcome, Dennis La Rue. Good day, Meticulous Moments audience. Today we have the privilege of spending time with the amazing and wonderful Dennis La Rue. Now, I've known Dennis for quite a while, and he is just such a unique and vibrant human being. It is such a tremendous pleasure to have him on Meticulous today. Welcome, Dennis.
Jay, it is so good to be here with you. We are literally thousands of miles away and connected just like this. Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing. It is amazing. And let me tell you, Dennis, because you and I can talk for hours, and whatever transpires is such an inspiration when we have these conversations. I have been looking forward to this interview for weeks. Thank you so much for making time for us. It is just such a privilege today and an honor.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this as well. I'm excited. We're going to have a great conversation together. And I brought the big cup of coffee with me to add a little more fuel to the already hot fire. I can't wait for our conversation today.
Absolutely. I love that, Dennis. I think every coffee lover needs a mug just like yours. Would you like to show the audience what the mug looks like and what the writing on it says?
Yes, here it is. It's a very big mug. This is to scale. This is my head. This is the mug.
I love it.
it says inspire someone today. And on the inside of the mug, right at the lip, it says enjoy life. So as I'm going for a sip, I see the words enjoy life. And well, I enjoy coffee. So this is a great way to start my day.
It is. And certainly when we have a conversation, we need a lot of fuel. So I know we've had some fabulous conversations. I mean, we can just talk for hours. You have such an open heart and an open spirit and such a wonderful love for the Lord. But would you please introduce yourself to the audience so they can also get to know you?
Sure. As you know, my name is Dennis La Rue. I live in San Antonio, Texas. If you've studied any history about Texas, if you've heard about the Alamo, that's the city I live in. Remember the Alamo. So I'm there. I'm married. Gosh, my wife and I have been married 31 years.
Amazing.
We've been married 31 years. We have 3 kids, all grown, 5 grandkids. So that's who I am first. Yeah. And then who I am is I have a business. I served in the Air Force for 23 years. So I'm a retiree from the United States Air Force, serving in a consultant role, various leadership levels at high levels. And now I serve as a leader of leaders and a coach of coaches. And I would say trust is important to me. So I would add a trusted coach of coaches and a trusted leader to leaders. And my business is called Leaders Develop Relationships. And the number one relationship leaders develop is with themselves first.
Absolutely. You are such a wonderful family man. I've seen, your posts on Facebook, and we were tagging each other on posts there. And the photos that you were sharing, you have a beautiful wife and family. You are so blessed. And I just want to say, from the first time I met you, I knew that you are a man of integrity. And when you spoke of someone that, values trust, I just want to say, Dennis, whenever we engage in whatever platform, if we are having a conversation like this, or tagging each other on posts, or sending messages, or working together in the CLA, you do bring that feeling of trust across, and I think that's a wonderful sign of leadership. It's amazing to see that. And I just want to know, where did this fantastic, vibrant, I would describe it, leadership journey of yours start? Where did it all begin?
That's a great question. I was really pondering that because my military career, when I think of leadership, I'm thinking current, but going back, hindsight's always 20/20. You don't realize it at the time, but I've had leadership aspects. My granddaughter's coming down the hall right now with their granny, getting ready to go to gymnastics.
Good.
I think that going back to who I am, I think it starts when I was a kid. I mean, I'm a big brother. I'm the oldest in a family of 6. My mom and dad adopted 4 children after my biological sister and I are 2 years apart. And then the next round of kids came, my mom and dad adopted them later on. So that leadership journey started when I was a kid with my little sister, just playing with her, being a big brother. And then I noticed it in the neighborhood that I was in, playing with kids. I was the one that was the captain of the teams, picking the teams, putting the teams together, and taking time with younger kids, showing them how to do things, playing sports and soccer. And then at school, I was that kid in school that was the class clown. And I was the one getting in trouble because I love to talk. Sitting still drove me crazy. I always had something to say, go figure. I mean, here we are being interviewed on a podcast. Always had something to say. Always wanted to make people laugh, but I was also that person on the playground again when it was recess. Okay, I was the captain of one team. We had a captain of the other team, and we picked teams, and it was always that way. So I saw that leadership all throughout in recruiting people to join teams, and in high school captain of sports teams, just seeing those things pop up. And I didn't notice it at the time. And then over the years, as I've connected with folks from high school, several of them said, you've always had this leadership about you. And I wouldn't have said that back then because I didn't see it.
Wow.
So I think that's where it started. It just came from me. And as a kid, I was one of those, I love being around people. Like when I got sick as a kid, which was
Yeah.
rare, I was miserable at home because I wanted to be at school. I mean, I woke up excited every day to get up, get down the street to the bus and get to school to see my friends, be around people and sports.
Yeah.
To keep me at home was like keeping me in prison. Nothing against my parents. I love my parents. They worked, but being at home was a prison by myself. I had to be around people. And so I think that's where my leadership journey started.
I love that answer. And, I really see why you and I connect so easily, because we are much alike. We don't have time to be sick. We need to be doing things out there. And as you were talking about how you were in the classroom and how you were outside, when the children were engaging, I really thought of a battery in my mind's eye. And, in South Africa, we have batteries and we call them double A. We call them triple A batteries. And I thought of 2 A's when you were speaking, as I saw you in the classroom, having fun and out there taking leadership and, organizing everyone. And I thought to myself, you're not only an authentic leader, but you are also an adaptable leader. So you know what your role is in the setting that you are in. And that is just phenomenal. I mean, your sister, I'm sure she knows that she has a phenomenal big brother. And I have to say, you are a phenomenal friend and a phenomenal leader. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you. I talk to my sister almost every day, and we have these conversations all the time. My wife is my best friend, but besides my wife, my next best friend would be my sister.
Amazing. That is such a wonderful testimony of what family should be like.
Yes. And I love that word adaptable, because before you said it, that came to my mind. A true story from sixth grade. I mean, I'm 11 years old. It's the school play, and we've been working on this for months. And my role in the school play was just kind of part of the crowd. I didn't have any speaking part. It was a group part that we all said together. So I could have lip synced the lines, and nobody would have noticed. But the morning of the play, that we had twins that had a specific role, a speaking part that they had. One of the twins was sick and couldn't come to school that day. And so here I am at the very last minute. The teacher comes to me and said, "We think you can do this part. Can you do it?" The show is today. The show is that day in a couple of hours. And in 1 hour, I memorized the lines of the other brother.
Amazing.
And did that role that day. And so when you say adaptable, that reminded me of that part, that particular role. And I've seen that part play out through my leadership as well. That's great observation on your part.
Wow. I keep a leadership journal, as do you. I'm sure every leader writes down, the leadership. I love it. You see, we have a lot in common. So in my leadership journal, I once wrote, leaders can function under pressure. And you just proved yourself on that day, because it had to put pressure on you. There's not a lot of time. You have to be prepared. And knowing you wanted to bring the best delivery of that role. So you functioned under pressure as a young child already. Wonderful.
Yeah. And I didn't even think about it. It wasn't well, I don't know. I don't think I can do it. It's like, okay. I mean, it was that day, that moment. The show must go on, as they say. And I just remember saying, okay, I can do it. I
love it. We should be more like that. Yeah, leaders we should be more like that. We should hone that skill, and we should put ourselves in situations where that can be something that challenges us, that keeps us on our toes. Now, I was thinking of leadership quotes, and I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite leadership quote and why?
I've got hundreds of quotes. That's so hard. 2 came to mind, but I'll just share this one, because this one I think it speaks to everything else about me and really inspires me. John Maxwell, who has been, besides family, besides my faith, has been the single most important leader in my life that has really helped me grow. And in his book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, which besides the Bible, I've read that book more than any other book on my bookshelf.
Fantastic.
And he said this, he said, if you're not doing something with your life, it doesn't matter how long it is.
Wow.
Isn't that powerful? I mean, that gives me chills every time I think about it and say it, because we're doers. Leaders are doers. Leaders are contributors. Leaders leave legacies. Leaders equip. Leaders know where they're going, and they're moving. They're constantly moving. And to be, there's that time where we got to be still and allow growth and things to catch up to us and to get pivots and directions. Yeah. But in this case here, this is all about contributing. If you're not doing anything with your life, you're not contributing. Yeah. So it doesn't matter how long your life is, because you're not doing anything with it.
Yes, yes.
And we were meant to do. Yeah, we're meant to do, be, and have. Yeah. And if most are, I think people are stuck in the middle with average. And that's such a bad word. Oh, yes. Average, mediocre, or here's a quote. You want to get under my skin real fast? Family knows this already. Say this, and you'll get under my skin fast. It is what it is. Oh, no. Especially, now there are some things it is what it is, but most of the time we use that as a protective shield to stay average and not do anything. Well, it is what it is. No, it is changeable. Yes, you can do something about it, and yes, you can grow. But it is what it is a safety mechanism for our minds to say, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to do anything. It's the easy way out. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, it unnerves me. It's that title. It's that quote. Yeah. If you're not doing anything with your life, then you're going to say it is what it is. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll accept it is what it is. Yes. Because that becomes the reality then. Yes. If they accept it, that's their reality. Like you just said, they accept it, and that's the end of the story. And I mean, as leaders, I view leadership as an anointing. I'm a believer. I love God. I love the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I always tell people when I have the privilege of giving them discipleship courses or leadership training, I always say leaders have an anointing on them. And if you lead, it's like stepping into that God-given life that you've been, given from God. And you cease to just simply exist. You live. And you owe it to yourself and to others to live up to that leadership that God has anointed you with, because you have a role in this world that is appointed to you. Absolutely. And Mark Cole, who serves John, I mean, he's now owns all of John Maxwell's companies. Yeah. And he said this, and I love this. He says, everyone deserves to be led well. Wow. Everyone deserves to be led well. That is so powerful and so true. And that's what you just said. If we're made in his image, if we're made in God's image, and we're anointed to lead, then our responsibility is to lead well, because we're representing his image to those we lead, because they represent his image to us. Yes. Leadership is a serious aspect of our lives, and we should see it as such. And I wanted to ask you the following question. Do leadership principles, in your opinion, do they stem from the Bible? Oh, what is your view on it? Yes, I think so. I think I don't even think it's just leadership. All the success books I've ever read go back to the Bible too. Yeah. Every one of them. Every single one of them. It in sports, people talk about coaches and their coaching tree. Who did they equip? Who did they develop that continued on the legacy of that coach? I think the Bible is the base, the initial root of the tree that all the other leadership books and success books flow from. Beautiful, beautiful.
I love that. I love that example that you're mentioning. Yes. I've seen so many things in society, and it always comes back to the Bible. We always get to the basics, back to the basics of the Word of God and what it teaches us. And I agree with you. Everything stems from the Word of God. Absolutely everything, because it is His Holy Spirit inspired Word. And, our conduct is so important, especially as leaders who are believers as well. And I wanted to ask you, what should the conduct be of a leader? Because, Christians also get under pressure, and we also have emotions. We are also just humans. We fall short of the glory of God. But what should the conduct be of a leader who finds himself or herself between a rock and a hard place? What should they do when they are there?
That's such a great question. The first thing, and I've messed up in this area. You get between a rock and a hard place, and emotion takes over, and you lose that self-control, or you lose that patience, and you just blow up and mess up, or you make a bad decision in the moment because of the emotion. It just blows things. I've done it, and I've done that more times than I can count.
Yeah.
But as I've been growing in this area, here's what I've learned. This is probably one of the most important lessons I've learned in those moments. If you are between a rock and a hard place, congratulations.
Yes.
There's a reason for it. You're doing something right. You're going in the right direction. The leader who doesn't face any hardships is not making a difference anywhere. As a matter of fact, you're not challenging yourself. You're riding a tricycle when you should be riding a bicycle.
Yes. Great. I love that. Yeah.
So if you're in the position between a rock and a hard place, expect it, because leaders are always under pressure. Embrace the pressure. It comes with the role. It comes with the title. It comes with the responsibility.
Yeah.
And when you're under pressure in those moments, the next step is when the shock and the odds around you. I picked this up from Bob Bodine, who wrote a book called The Two Chairs. Oh. He asks 3 questions when you're in that moment of pressure. These 3 questions have, and I've come across this just in the last year, and it has really transformed. I share it with everybody now.
Yes.
So these 3 questions you need to ask in those moments, because the shock, the awe, the atomic bomb is going off, the sirens are going off, the distractions, the yelling, all of that's going on in the moment.
Yeah.
And if you just pause, shove the car into neutral, quit stepping on the gas or slamming on the brakes or putting it in reverse.
Yeah.
Put it in neutral.
Yeah.
And then ask these questions. The first question is, does God know about my situation? Okay, this isn't seminary. We're not talking about systematic theology here, any of that stuff. Does God know about my situation?
Yeah.
Answer and say it out loud and answer it out loud, because you need to talk to yourself. The second question is my situation too big for God to handle?
Wow.
And then the last question, once you've answered that out loud too, is, does God have a good plan for my life? Now, a lot of people can answer those questions, but not a lot of people believe the answers to those questions.
Yes, true.
And we have to have that belief, and we've got to get recentered on those 3 questions. And what that does is it lets the nuclear cloud settle, and quiets out the noise, so you can hear the still small voice with that pressure problem to remind you, okay, what's the next step in this pressure? Is my job to stay here and let the pressure build? Do I move forward? Do I need to take a step back? Do I need to make a decision here? Or is there somebody I need to reach out to? Now you're able to look at it from a different perspective, and you can also tune out the distractions and the loud noises to hear the still small voice behind all of it.
Beautiful. That is wonderful, wonderful advice. Yes. And I often say, and you mentioned that in the beginning, I often say that leaders always choose the difficult tasks. Leaders are not people that, always choose the easy way out, like the people that say, oh, well, it is what it is. Leaders say, well, I'm a leader, I'm a problem solver. Let's take this difficult task first and we deal with that first. We'll do the others later. And then often people come to me and they ask me, and that's why I put that question in this list today. People come to me and they ask me, what do I do if I find myself between a rock and a hard place? And I always give them a sentence that's got 3 words in it. And that you also touched on because you have a very strong intuition. I always say when you find yourself between a rock and a hard place, I say you just look up. You look up. 3 words. You look up.
Yes.
Because God's the only one that can navigate us out of there.
That's right. And sometimes he'll send somebody our way or bring them to our mind to come alongside of us to walk us through it. Because some pressure we go through, we need a partner.
Yes, true.
We need an accountability partner. We need those mentors, those people that have been there, done that ahead of us, that can give us wisdom that we don't have in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I can testify in your family as well, your beautiful family, your wife. I mean, you have been believers, you walk with God. I can see it, through your conduct. And we know that God always makes a way. He's always ahead a few steps. And there's nothing too big, like you mentioned in those 3 questions. There's nothing too big for God to handle. So
That's
we
right.
should have that faith and that conviction that there is more than one way out, because we are short-sighted as humans. We only see one way out. I don't fit through this crack. Well, God is making something happen behind you. Maybe there's a shift and something else transpires. He's always so innovative when he does these things.
He is. And if we go down the wrong path, he takes that clay and pulls out the rock and beats it down and builds it back up. I don't know how many times I've been beaten down.
Yeah, same here. Same here. But he does all of that in love. And we learn.
Absolutely.
We learn. Yeah.
That's right.
Amen. Amen. So, Dennis, in your opinion, should leaders employ different leadership styles when working with individuals who display different personality characteristics?
That is a great question. And thinking about that, I don't think that the leadership style changes.
Yeah.
It's the communication style that changes.
Wow.
With personalities, because everybody has a different personality.
Yes.
And so it's a leader's responsibility to know their people, connect with their people, communicate with their people in the way that meets their personality. But the vision, the goal, the mission doesn't change. It's a responsibility of the leader to get the team together and understand each one of their roles and responsibilities and how they make that happen and how we work together as a team. But I don't think that the leader changes the style of leading. They change their style of connecting.
That's a beautiful, beautiful answer. Absolutely profound answer. And that's also part of adaptability. And Dennis, that's something that we can't teach a leader. That is something that comes naturally through leading for many years, learning to adapt to different, communicating differently with different people, their personalities. When WhatsApp first came out, I realized that sometimes, people, and there's actually a lot of people that were, that I had to counsel because of what I'm going to tell you now. Sometimes when there's different personalities at play, and this happens in the church as well, there's different personalities at play. So the one person can reply to the other person. Let's say it's a church group chat and someone asks a question and the other person is in a hurry. I mean, we don't know what they're busy. Maybe they are at work in a meeting, but they just feel compelled just to answer. And they just reply, yes. A text doesn't always say, that's my experience in the church. It doesn't always carry the communication that the person intended for it to carry over to the next person. Sometimes the person on this side is going through something emotional and they are like, why am I getting the short answer? Is this person being rude? Or so when the voice notes came out, I always told the church, please, if you know that person, is not very stable or they can take offense quickly, rather on the group, send them a voice note so they can hear your warmth, your voice embracing them and that they feel accepted and loved. And, communication is key in leadership and it's really a skill, but it's not always something that you can teach people. It's something that develops. Some things are taught. I don't know whose slogan this is. Some things are taught and some things are caught. And this is something that we should really, bring to the fore when we have teams and we, train them. What is your opinion on that? I just thought of that now.
Yeah, that there's an art to that. And I think one of the ways you can overcome the text, email, and reading into everything around it is believe the best in the person sending it first.
Absolutely.
And then let the rest of it flow. Because sometimes what happens is we're in a hurry and we really need an answer to something fast. And so we send that text message and they respond with, we don't know what's going on in their environment, but with a yes, or what appears to be a snarky comment back. And you're like, I don't think they meant I don't think they meant the energy I don't think they meant the intensity that came back. Yeah. And so that's when you got to kind of set it aside, take a breath and say, okay, they're going to get back to me. Yeah. I see it in discussion posts. I mean, social media is big for this. If somebody responds to something you post and you can interpret it in so many different ways. I was in a discussion thread on something on social media and somebody posted a response that, it came across ugly. Yeah. And there was some back and forth in it. But at the end of it, I saw right away something the person said about themselves connected with me. Okay, and I went back to them and said, hey, thank you for this discussion. You gave me something to think about. And also my next statement was thank you for, and connected with them in what they said about themselves, letting them know, I understand that point of view you're coming from. Yeah. And so I see why you said what you said based on what you ended with. And left it at that. You know what? Beautiful. There was no response after that. Not a single response. And what I learned is people want to be understood and heard before we start giving them a word.
Wonderful. That is a fantastic way to view it. And I'm the same. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I always try to not read into things too much. Not to overthink, because look at what happens on social media. So it is so easy for people to miscommunicate, especially in our fast-paced society, because everything just happens, And it's wonderful how you handled that. And it made me think of something that I also love to teach, the young ones especially, is that leaders flip the script. If you see a confrontation coming, you don't have to respond with the same energy that the person approached you with. A kind word, and that's a biblical principle, getting back to the word of God, just a kind word to that person can flip the script. And it can be the place where actually wonderful friendships can start. That has also happened to me in the past.
Absolutely. And what do we call that today? We call that emotional intelligence.
Yes.
That's exactly what that is. We're calling it, we're practicing self-management. We're practicing self-awareness. We're also practicing social awareness and social management. I mean, that's emotional intelligence. And it's teaching people to see things from a different lens.
Yes.
Put yourself in their shoes for the moment as best you can. Role play. Take out the emotion and look at it from a different perspective. You're sitting over your shoulder looking in at this and how that person's responding. How would you respond if you were in their shoes? Well, you know what? I see their point of view. Okay. Yeah. Well, then the next step is, how do you diffuse that in? How do you diffuse their aggravation? Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't, but you can certainly say, I may not understand everything you see, but I understand the perspective that you're bringing to me.
And right there, the situation changes. Now, these are words of wisdom, leadership words of wisdom from Dennis La Rue. Putting yourself in other people's shoes and trying to see their point. And you also mentioned that people want to be understood. They just want to be understood. They just want to be accepted, loved. And when we first accept and love and invite them in, that is really when they start to listen to what we have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard John say this quote a million times. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Wonderful. True. It's absolutely really true. Yeah.
People are always asking, do you know me? Do you trust me? Do you care for me? Can I trust you? They're asking those things every time they see you. I mean, what we do. How many times have you been approached on social media by somebody who doesn't know you, pitching you to purchase their service or product?
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, for anybody watching this, if you reach out to me and you try to sell me a product before you get to know me, whatever your number is for number of no's to get a yes, I'm one of those no's. I'm one of those no's every time. If you don't want to get to know me, if you're just trying to make your quota of calls for the day, there's nothing wrong with that. There's numbers and science to that. I'm not one of those. So just put me a no on your list. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to send it to me. Just start the day, write Dennis La Rue, call number 1, no. And you've already got your first no without having to send me anything.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. You can add my name underneath as well with the no. I'm
there you go. 2, you international. There you go. You reached internationally, and there's two right off the bat. You're already down to 23 calls.
Oh, this is why I love to have these conversations with you. I love that.
And for my salespeople out there, for people that are in sales, and I've got salespeople in my circles, and I love you guys. Those I know that you're doing what you're doing, and you're doing it very well. Those of you that are in my circles that are close to me, it's because you've built that relationship with me, Ari, and that's why I throw that out there.
Yeah. I mean to that, and as leaders, when we lead teams, sometimes we suck at something the first time we do it. I mean, we can't be a novice at everything we try the first time. And then people feel disappointed. Mm-hmm. And I've seen, through the years, and I'm sure you've witnessed this as well, Dennis, that people, they internalize that disappointment. They feel the failure is them. Mm. And I tell them, you are not the failure. You just have to recalibrate your plan a little bit. You just have to go brainstorm a little bit more. Set maybe smaller goals before you jump right to the big one. What is your opinion on this? How should leaders deal with disappointment?
Disappointment is based off of expectations. Because I think disappointment's an emotion. Good leaders know failure's their friend. Yes. I don't like failure because I love to win. I look at failure as losing, and I don't like losing. So I've really had to work on that. It's like I don't like failure, and it's taken me time, and it still takes me time to embrace failure as your friend. And it's only your friend if you learn the lessons from it, so you don't repeat it.
Yeah.
But disappointment is based off of expectations. So if my expectation is too high, it's an impossibility, then I'm putting a constraint on myself to achieve it in a certain time frame, and that it doesn't happen, And then I'm disappointed because it didn't happen when I wanted it to happen. A great example for me would be in my military career. One of the ways we got promoted was a testing process. There was a multifaceted way, but what I controlled was testing. And so I had to take a test. And literally 2 years in a row, if I would have just one year, if I'd have scored just 2 points higher on a test, I'd have been promoted. I was the number. If they would have one more extra promotion that year, 2 years in a row, it would have been my promotion. But, and the disappointment and the anger and the frustration, oh my goodness. Usually when those days happened after celebrating with my friends that were promoted, I would go home and go running. And when I went running, it was one of those, I ran until I was exhausted running. As far as I could go for as fast as I could go until I was completely exhausted to just burn it out. And so my expectation was to get promoted, and I didn't meet my expectation. But part of the problem with that expectation, it wasn't impossible for me to make it. My problem was I didn't execute my plan. I expected that my talent and what I knew already with a little bit of study would get me over the top. And after that second time that I missed it when I should have, I mean, what was really funny about it, the first time it happened, the person in charge of everybody in my job that got promoted went back to the testing officials to rescore my test because they couldn't believe I didn't make it.
My goodness.
So they had the expectation I was supposed to make it, and I didn't make it. I mean, I didn't meet their expectation or my own. But then what happened? What happened was I didn't put the right plan in place and execute that. The lesson I learned was I need to set a plan. I need to not only set the plan, but I need to get serious. Do I really want this, or am I playing around it? Because I'm expecting it and not doing the work. So when I really put the plan in place and I did the work and I was consistent and communicated that to family, to coworkers and everything else and stuck to it, I went from being the number one person not getting the promotion to next year being the first person to get the promotion.
Amazing.
And that happened twice in my career. And you would think I would have learned the lesson the first time. But when I got that down, then it wasn't expectation. When I walked out of that test, it wasn't a false expectation. I knew when I walked out of that test, I'm like, unless something ridiculous happens, I'm getting promoted. There's no way. There's absolutely no way walking out of this test. I controlled everything I could control to get promoted. If I don't get promoted, it won't be my fault this time.
Wonderful. It took courage for you to do that introspection, to see that, you wanted to do it and you had those aspirations, but you weren't putting in that work. And what you are saying here happens to all of us during the course of our lives. We all do this. It happens to all of us. Yeah.
And I can remember blaming. I remember being mad and putting out the blame game. And then I realized, hold on.
Yeah.
You know what? I can score higher than this. I can put more time in this. I had to make some sacrifices to do it, which is another key area for leadership. You have to sacrifice in order to get to where you want to go. You got to do things you've never done, and you're going to have to make some changes to pay the price to get to where you want to go. And at that time, I wasn't paying the price, but then I committed to paying the price. And I got the result I wanted. So a great thing in leadership is getting clear. You got to be clear. Leaders who aren't clear, eventually they're leaders in title, but like John says, if you got no followers, you're only out on a walk.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Leaders that aren't clear will lose everybody on their team. Yeah.
Beautifully stated, very well articulated. I like that. Absolutely. And it actually leads me to our next question. What is the difference between a leader and a boss?
I love this question because there appears to be a black or white, leader, boss. But in my career, I I had fellow people that work for me call me boss. And the intention of that word wasn't boss or it was a negative connotation. Yeah. It was a respectful title.
Yeah.
And so traditionally you'll see the argument, boss versus leader, and you'll see articles all over the internet and social media and all that. But you know what? There's no difference between a boss and a leader, because leadership is influence. A boss has influence just like a leader.
Yeah.
Now, in the case of the example I gave, boss and leader are exactly the same. They viewed me the same.
Yes.
But for most people, when they use the word boss, it's because the boss is stuck on their title as a leader, and they don't grow as a leader. And so therefore, everybody in the office has made it's my way or the highway leadership. And if you don't like it, you can get a job elsewhere. That's a boss.
Oh, yes.
The leader is one who doesn't rely on their title alone for their leadership.
Yes.
They build relationships with their people. We talked about the art. They understand the personality of their team. They've set the vision and the goal. The adjustments they make are how they communicate with their team. Not this is the goal, this is the vision. You're going to get it done, and that's that. And here's how you're going to get it done, because you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that, and you're going to do that. If you don't like it, you can get a new job.
Yeah,
that's a boss. The leader said,
I love that answer.
Yeah. And the leader says, you know what? You're really great at this. Can you fulfill this role to do this part? And then when you're done with that, can you give it to this person here to review it, because they're really good at this? And then you two, I want you to work together to do this.
Yeah.
And then that's how we'll get this goal done. I'll do one last final review and then we'll pass it up.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah. And when can you get that to me? I can get it to you in an hour. Great. I'll see you in an hour. Bang.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Working like a well-oiled machine. Look at the difference. How you took exactly the same person, you adapted and you recalibrated the person's communication and their approach. And I would say, I think attitude as well, because you spoke about people that are stuck on titles. And just by recalibrating that, look at the difference. Everybody on the team is happy in your illustration. Everybody knows what they're working toward. And the result is just phenomenal. Just by making small changes. It's not impossible. Just make those necessary small changes. And there you go.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say that if there is a boss, if the boss is a negative, then the boss's boss is doing the same thing. People do what people see.
Yes, that's a wonderful point. Yes, that boss is also under pressure from their boss. That's a wonderful point. They're seeing that in their superiors. So this goes right to the top. And maybe we should start as leaders addressing the top first before addressing the bottom.
Yes.
And seeing why companies are underperforming. Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of people pass the blame downhill, but the problem isn't downhill. The problem is who's throwing it downhill. Yeah. Because the leader, it's everything rises and falls with leadership, John Maxwell says. And that's true. When on a sports team, the problem isn't talent. In professional sports, everybody's talented. That's why they're in the team. The talent pool, there's very little difference. It comes with when a team underperforms, the team doesn't get fired, the coach does. The general manager. Yeah. They're the ones that get fired. And that's they bring in a new coach, the team wins next year. Is it because of the talent? No, it's because of the leadership. That's
an impeccable point. We are really digging into this topic. And look what we are discovering. That point that you just made, that is, someone in the audience is going to hear that. And they're going to hear what you are bringing in this session, and it's going to transform lives out there. And that's really edifying to me, because I can just see it all unfold. And I realize that there's people out there just looking for direction. just looking for that leadership, and they are going to find it in this session. Thank you so much for your importation, Dennis. I really appreciate it. Absolutely.
Oh, you're welcome. It's powerful. These are lessons that I've learned, and I'm still growing in these areas too.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. If I brought my family in here, boy, I tell you that they'd tell some stories. I've failed in some of these areas, and and I know I'm going to fail again in spots, but it's what we learn when we fail and what we adjust, because our problems aren't information and education. We've got more information and education around us than I think than we've ever had before. It's how we apply it. Yeah. And then how not only do we apply it, but then the wisdom we gain from it and the adjustments we make as a result of how we apply it, the lessons we learn from the application, the adjustments that we make, the wisdom that we get, and the wisdom that we share.
Amazing. Making the reach so much bigger. We receive and we share. We grow as we rise, we lift. And that is a continuous process. And so we develop and we evolve as leaders. And, a community is very, very important to us. I know to you as well, because you have a heart for people. And leaders really have a very important role within the community and the development of what transpires in the future. Now, my next question to you is, what are the characteristics of a leader who was born, and that's all of us, to transform the world into a better place?
Wow. The characteristics of a leader. Wow, there's so many come to mind. I think the first thing that comes to mind, if the focus is transforming the world, then one characteristic of a leader is consistent personal growth to grow into that role of transformation. In order to transform, you got to be transformed. You can't give what you don't have. True. So you have to grow. You have to be growth focused. I would say the adaptability piece as well, because transformation is, for one person, may be different for another, depending on where they're at in life. For some, like my transformation was a decision instantly. So leaders are decisive too. They know where they want to go. They know how to get there. And the adjustments they make are to get to their destination. So they're decisive. And and so my transformation was a decision like that I've grown over time through making the decision and then trying to fulfill my purpose. So I would say leaders are also very purpose driven.
Beautiful. That's a wonderful, wonderful way to state it. Yeah, absolutely.
Those are the characteristics that come to mind right off the top of my head.
Yeah. Now, we had a wonderful virtual coffee. I mean, the first time we connected, we had such a wonderful virtual coffee. It felt like we've known each other for so long because we just started communicating and there was quotes flying and we were discovering things together. I mean, I will never forget that day.
That was so much fun. There was an instant connection. It's like we've known each other forever.
Yeah. And I remember, Dennis, sometimes I write things down and after that, I can't read my handwriting, but you said something amazing. There was a quote during that session that you formulated in our virtual coffee. Now, I have a book. I always write things down when I'm working and busy doing this. And can you elaborate on that for the audience? I know it was scripturally based.
Yeah, we were talking about running the race because I ran cross country and track. I've been and played soccer, so it's like I was born running. I love to run. It's kind of like Forrest Gump. I was running. Running. I even running in the halls to class. I've always been running, and it got me thinking about running the race in a way to obtain the prize.
Yeah. The
focus in life is, I think our concept was, when in the Olympics, people are happy to get on the podium, the gold, the silver, the bronze, but ultimately you want the gold. You train and you work and you discipline yourself to get the gold in your event. And life is supposed to be just like that. That's how we're to live our lives. We're to live our lives in such a way that we're crossing the finish line, getting the gold medal.
Amen.
It's not just a run. We run our race and we run at our own pace, but the focus is on disciplining ourselves to get the gold medal, not just crawl across the finish line, but we are in the lead, sprinting across the finish line. We're celebrating as the tape comes across, because the next place that we're heading after that is a lap around the track, maybe holding up our country flag, but celebrating with the crowd, and then getting on the podium and receiving the prize. And in this life, the prize, whatever the prize is in this life, it's ultimately hearing well done in the next.
Beautiful. My good and faithful servant. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Scripture.
We want to get to the finish line where we are out of breath and out of life, not with life and breath left in the tank and wondering, I should have done more. I could have done more. I could have been more.
Yeah.
I think the quote that I've heard said is, we don't want to die with the music inside of us.
Yeah.
We want to get to the end of the race and say, I gave everything I had. Like, I remember finishing my first marathon. I gave everything I had. It was horrible. What a horrible experience. I was miserable.
I love the honesty.
It was. And I trained for it. I trained for it with a person who had done many marathons. My training plan was horrible. I made so many mistakes in my first marathon that I paid for it. I paid for it on the day of the race.
I hear you.
I hit the wall at mile 20, and the last 6 miles were the longest, worst, painful 6.2 miles of my life.
My goodness. You'll never forget that.
I won't forget it. But you know what? The competitor in me, when I crossed the finish line, the first thing I said was this: I'll never do it again. An hour later, the competitor in me has said, I'm not going out that way. I will be doing this again.
Wow.
I'm not going to go out like this. And and I trained by myself the next year because my training partner moved. And I said, well, I know what to expect. I'm running the same race. I made changes to my plan. I followed my plan to the T. I did all kinds of different adjustments. And the next year, not only did I run a really good race, I ran an hour faster than the year before.
Wow. That is a lot of time that you cut away. Wow.
And I felt amazing. I felt amazing after the race, and I ran hard and I was tired, but I felt so amazing.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And I said to myself, if I don't run another one, here's what I know. I can go out and say, I beat it, because it didn't beat me this time. I beat it this time. The only thing I have to do now is just run faster, but I beat the distance.
Amazing. It's wonderful to hear how you felt after such a long race, cutting your time down, with so much time. That is just, you recalibrated your training plan. You stuck to little goals, and then you reached the big goal. And you were saying earlier, it's not just to run. And in my mind, I was finishing the sentence. It's not just to run. And when you finish that sentence, I thought it's to accomplish. And when I look at, the way you conduct yourself as a leader, the person that you are, the family man that you are, the man of God that you are, I see a zest for life, enjoyment and enthusiasm. And that's really, people are drawn to that because they want to have someone that brings that energy into their lives. So that is just amazing. You are doing such great work. We commend you on that. It is wonderful to know you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I do want to live life passionately. You know what? The logo that I have is a blue flame.
Wow.
And a blue flame is hotter and more, and I would say more passionate than your normal yellow flame.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I want to burn hotter, and I want to burn brighter, and I want to burn maybe not faster. I don't want to burn out.
Yes.
But if I'm continually pouring fuel on my fire, the fire is always going to be blue. When I take away the fuel on the fire, it's going to go yellow and then into the embers. But it will never burn out as long as I keep pouring and stirring up the embers in the flame and putting the right fuel on my fire.
Yes. Well, I can see, Dennis, that your fire, that passion for leadership will never burn out. And I want to share something interesting with you before I go to the next question. Yeah. I started a young adults group here at the church that I'm ministering, and the name of the group is Ignite. And I made t-shirts, and guess what color the flame is on the t-shirt?
It's blue, isn't it?
I'm going to send you a photo.
I've got to see it. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Dennis, I can't believe, the time has just flown. We've only got 2 hours left. Not 2 hours, 2 questions.
I was going to say, hey, we got 2 more hours. Sure, why not?
I know.
We'll cut it into parts.
Yeah, we'll do a series. I love that. And the second last question is, what's next for you?
That's a great question. And that's a question I often ask of others, what's next when they achieve a certain goal? And for me, what's next is I'm really honing in on, I've been honing in on my purpose even more and the direction I'm going. And I notice what's next for me is building a team for me. My team, building my team for what's next, and building the business beyond being a solo leader that's doing some consulting and coaching individual and small groups. But I need to build a team to multiply, because I believe I'm in that season where it's not about success. It's more about significance. It's more about equipping.
Beautiful.
And passing it on. And I think that's something we're missing from a faith perspective. We forget that we're supposed to equip, not just draw followers in, but to equip for them to go out.
Yes.
And reproduce. And so I'm seeing that season in my life right now coming out, and really getting clarity in that area. Who to draw in, building that inner circle, and then from that inner circle, building it out to, okay, what does that look like? And there's some great examples already of that in my life. It's now, okay, how do I take that from other areas and now do it here? And so for me, it's now getting clarity on, okay, what's next? Meaning, okay, what's that next step of the journey where I need that team? Because as a runner, I can run all day, and I enjoy running by myself.
Yes.
But there's in cross country, if you run by yourself, you may win the race, but you're going to lose. You're going to lose the team points, because you need 5 runners to get the points to win as a team. So I don't want to be the solo runner that gets the finish line and celebrates, but then I lost the opportunity to equip others and build a team to run a race together. Because in marathons, there's a thing called pace setters.
Yes.
And so for those runners that aren't competitive, but that can't compete at an elite level, but they want to get to a certain time. These people will run the whole race holding up a sign with the time that they are going to run as a pace setter.
Amazing.
And so they have a whole group around them, and you stay with them. And when you run in a group, you can run farther and faster and enjoy the conversation. And if you got pain, a lot of times you ignore it because you're having conversation with somebody else in the run or being with a group of people. And you also don't want to drop out. You don't want to get a DNF, did not finish.
Yes, yes.
So you stay in the group and you hang on to the group.
Amazing.
But leaders are the ones that are in the front of the pack that are seeking to win the race. But after they've crossed the finish line, you know what they do? They go back and don't leave any of their team behind, and they finish the race.
Goodness. I did not know that. I did not know that. Listen to that wonderful explanation of the dynamics of the team and the benefits of being in a team and that selfless leadership. They actually go back because they want to spur their teammates on to finish. That is amazing. Yes, and then it helps, like you said, it helps you to not think of the pain that you're going through and to want to finish more, to aspire you to accomplish more. That is just wonderful.
Yes, runners set the leader sets the example and runs their race with excellence, but they don't run so far. They may even finish that race, but they never leave their team behind. They're always there. They'll go back and get them. They'll be at the finish line to watch them finish, or knowing their team, they'll know who's farther back and may be struggling, and they go back and get them, and they run with them to cross the finish line together. You're only as strong as your weakest link.
I love that. I love that, Dennis. And, I've always, through the years, in the church, there's discipleship classes. And I always tell people, and that's what you're doing now. You are duplicating yourself, your leadership. And I've been telling people for years that leaders need to duplicate themselves. Yeah. You have to take what you've learned and help someone else to learn that, because you and I will agree, we learned things in our 30s that we wished about leadership that we knew in our 20s. How tremendously impactful is it to go as a leader what you're doing now and to teach them already in their 20s what you know and to set them up for success and assist them to cross that finish line. That is just amazing.
Yes, it's so important. And, one of the struggles I think leaders have in this area is we struggle reproducing ourselves because we're constantly working on ourselves, and we get into that perfection gap where we got to be perfect and we got to have the perfect character and the perfect, we got to have the perfect actions. And when we attain perfection, then we'll bring people with us. But the problem with that, and I've struggled with this mindset, is you never get to perfection. So teach as you learn a lesson. Teach the lesson you learn when you learn it, and bring people along with you. And that's what needs to be worked on. And another part is we're afraid of people getting close to us, especially in the church, because we're afraid that they'll get to know us and we won't meet up to their expectations, or we'll make a mistake that will affect them, or they leave us. And it hurts. And leadership does hurt because we love people. You love your people. And when you love people, expect to get hurt, because the greatest leader of all experienced the ultimate pain for all of us.
Amen.
And how often do we turn around and forget about that? And make decisions that are harmful, or not the best decisions, but we're forgiven.
Amen.
Leaders forgive. Leaders forgive. Beautiful. It may take a while to earn that trust back, but leaders forgive, but they don't always forget.
Yes. No, understandably so. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's where unconditional love comes in. We love in spite of all of those things. And trust is built. If we really value trust, which I do, then you will do everything in your power to get it back.
Absolutely true. Couldn't have said it better. Wonderful importation of knowledge, of experience, of years of leadership, being out there really making an impact. And this brings us to our final question. Do you have any words of wisdom for the audience?
Wow. a question that gets asked to me a lot, and it's a question I've asked, is what's the greatest advice you've ever been given? I love those questions because, and the greatest advice that I ever received, and I've received a lot, but this one always stands out when this question comes up, is I got this from a pastor when I was stationed in England. And I asked him this, and this was what he received from his mentor, and it was this. And it's a faith-based kind of answer, but I think the audience will get the message. And it was this: be ready to preach, pray, or die at a moment's notice.
Wow. Amen.
And the meaning behind that isn't, okay, be ready to die, blah, blah. It's this. It's the first two words. Be ready. Yeah. Be ready for opportunity. When you're called upon for an opportunity, be ready. When you're called upon to speak, be ready. Yeah. And when you are called upon to stand on a hill and defend who you are, defend your team, defend those values that you hold dear, then be ready to die for them too. Mm-hmm. But be ready.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm thinking of two very short sentences that came out of this amazing interview. This informational, anointed, I would say, interview. And those are the two sentences. And they don't have a lot of words. I'm thinking that we talked about being between a rock and a hard place. So the one sentence is just look up, because God has the answer. And I'm thinking of what you illustrated just now. Be ready. That's wisdom right there. Be ready for anything that life might throw at you. Once again, a wonderful session with you. An anointed session. I can feel that the Lord is moving. I experience the Holy Spirit when we connect. And I think of that scripture that says, God's Spirit testifies with our spirit that we are children of God. And I just want to say, I'm blessed to know you. Thank you for everything.
I love it. And it reminds me of the scripture on the walk, the two gentlemen walking. And the Lord leaves them, and they said, didn't our hearts burn within us as he was speaking to us? Absolutely.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your heart for people. We really find it refreshing. You are definitely an anointed leader of God, and we are going to invite you back onto Meticulous Moments. We have to.
we must. Thank you for having me, and such a pleasure and a privilege to serve. And I'm grateful for our relationship.
Amen. Thank you, my brother. I really appreciate it. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, how great was that? We know that you enjoyed it. Take the principles that you've learned from Dennis today and go and apply them. Go over into action. And we are going to cheer Dennis on his wonderful leadership journey. We will make his contact details available after the session. Reach out to him, network with him, and just have a lovely, lovely day. We'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.
Take care, friends.